Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the webinar, to the IRIS webinar of today. The audience is still popping up into the webinar. Maybe we will wait for a few more seconds to let everybody in. We see here a lot of people are popping up, and let's give them a chance to get into the webinar. All right. I think then we should start. Okay. Welcome to today's IRIS webinar, International Accounts Payable, supporting a seamless P2P process across borders. I'm delighted that so many people, so many of us have gathered here today. We are confident that it is worthwhile. Who are you dealing with today? Let me show you the people of today's webinar. Firstly, Leo Fontenbusch, Business Development Manager for many years. Leo reports from practical experience what it means to design international invoicing projects and successfully bring them into production. We also want to show you this live, and this will be done by your experienced consultant, Thies Boos. And I'm very proud to introduce you all to Jan Rattay, Chief Solution Architect from Z+M Group, a service provider specialist in document processing, data extraction, and validation for business process automation. Jan will share practical insights on how to successfully implement international invoice projects. My name is Frank Tiet. I'm the Sales Director at IRIS for Direct Business, and I will try to guide you through this webinar. A few notes at the beginning. Housekeeping rules, right? The focus will be set on messages and demos we are providing. Therefore, we will now switch off our camera to minimize the distraction. We will come back to you all at the end of the webinar in full beauty. We are recording the webinar and will make this available to you afterwards, as well as the presentation. So no screenshots necessary, focus on the information. In addition, we will collect your questions during the webinar and answer them in the Q&A session at the end of the webinar, time permitting. All right, so here we go. Let us start with some invoice service predictions, 2025 to 2030, discussions between an inbound service provider and the capture software vendor to warm up. Jan, let's start with what is probably the most frequently discussed statement at the moment. Steady decline of volumes of paper-based invoices as suppliers shift either to e-invoices or data exchange channels. How does a BPO notice this trend?
We are definitely noticing a market shift, which was further accelerated by the COVID pandemic, at least from my point of view. Quite a lot of enterprises are pushing towards procure-to-pay platforms such as SAP, Ariba, and similar, where they leverage their market position and push their vendors to obey a set of rules for invoicing within the tool the said company is using. This, of course, means that the paper channels are being affected too. We have seen the paper invoice processing decline steadily, and it nearly halved of the volume we have seen 2 years ago. This means we are focusing on getting the most out of electronic invoice processing, offering comprehensive pre-checking of electronic and e-invoice formats, including order balances, credit offset calculations, and integrity checks. Through clever scripting and automation, we can substitute human interaction and free up much of the work the customer's finance team, even for the e-invoices, which are considered by many managers as hassle-free process, which we know they aren't. We make the ruling process as efficient as it could be, and the result is an invoice document that is correctly referenced to the purchase order and is ready to be paid for in the ERP.
Yeah, let me add something. This means that you expect much more from a capture vendor than today. Means IRIS has to integrate and access more interfaces and check data more comprehensively, right?
This is exactly right. This is what is happening right now. We are working both internally and with IRIS to develop much more intelligent procedures than ever before, using extensive databases and other external sources. There are bottlenecks in the infrastructure that we have fought with and won, accomplishing steady processing of 15,000 documents daily that require rule checking, human validation steps, and exemptions handling. This would not be possible without investments in modern, powerful equipment that our customers benefit from in the shape of the effective service we are providing to them.
Yeah, and here's the second statement. Scanning services shift to business process outsourcing services, workflow and archive. Enhance BPO values. What does that mean for a BPO like Z+M?
Yeah, this is a market development we have seen in the past year or so, Frank. Customers have started to realize that the data in their archive are losing value since their lack of proper digitization policies. To be more specific, customers who have shown the initiative to digitize their archives went more often than not with the cheaper plain scanning, and they have completely omitted a need for a proper data structuring. This resulted in digital archives that were often as inconsistent and difficult to search in as the physical ones. The proper focus here should be to analyze how the digitized data are helping processes in the company and keep this as a main goal when implementing a BPO service that includes archive digitization as well. I believe that Z+M is together with Canon Group and IRIS technology on the forefront of data structuring, and since we are treating archive data as structured documentation, these are ready to be filed correctly in archive storage systems, ERPs, and be ready for AI agents to work with them.
With your last statement, I think we are touching the most fancy and powerful topic. Data validation shifts from operator-based to AI-based with HITL quality control step, means human in the loop. So AI will generate a real value in inbound capture, right?
Yes, we are believing that this is the future. There are applications that AI can bring a real value in, such as address fields, line items, dates and dates formats that are tedious for our operators to extract correctly and in a timely manner. The synergic work of AI and humans can definitely bring more precise results that are delivered quickly. The AI integration is under development in IRISXtract, so stay tuned.
Wow, okay, very interesting. Let's see how we can keep these statements in our presentation of today. Let's leave it at that for now and involve our audience in the conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's your turn. A customer survey. Where do you see invoice processing in the next 5 years? We have 4 choices. You can click on more than one. And finally, press, please, the submit button. We give you a few seconds to read the statements and make your choice. Ooh, that's very interesting. You can't see it, but we can see it. And of course, we will publish it over the time in the presentation we are giving. Oh, it's kind of changing over the time. Much more interesting. All right. I think, thank you very much. That gives us a very good orientation for today's meeting. All right, let's move on. What can you expect today? The focus is on processing invoices from all over the world, right? We want to explain the IRIS approach and how we have succeeded in mapping the different requirements and putting them into productive use. We will show you how to successfully integrate the international requirements that are imposed on you by e-invoicing processing. We call it the hybrid approach. And all of this will culminate in the presentation of invoice data in an efficient cross-process P2P integration, presented and supported by our BPO partner, Z+M. Look forward to how you can respond to modern requirements for international invoice processing, and you succeed in mastering cross-border invoices for your accounting. Why? What we have learned. Now I give the floor to Leo, who continue the presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Frank, for the introduction. IRIS has been successfully marketing its account payable solution package for more than 25 years. And currently, we have more than 3,000 happy customers. And I can tell you that we have learned a lot during this time period. Most recently, for example, we integrated e-invoices to be processed within IRISXtract. In summary, the unique selling points of the solution package can be described as follows. First, in Extract, the integrated data capture workflow allows all invoice formats and types, including e-invoices, to be checked with the rule set and to be processed as needed. Furthermore, when we talk about international invoices, we don't mean that invoices come from foreign suppliers, from foreign countries, and are processed according to the German tax law. No, we think that international invoice processing means we use different region packages in one extract system to process invoices for customers, no matter where in the world they need to be processed. And with the powerful PO matching function, invoice lines can be compared with purchase order lines and automatically being matched within the procurement or purchase to pay solution. Finally, the invoices are output as XML data records and, if desired, with IHQC compressed color images for further processing. Now we are speaking about harmonizing of all these different streams. And one of IRISXtract's particular strengths is its ability to process invoices worldwide, regardless of the format in which they are received by the customer. With the latest extension for e-invoices, almost all European formats can be processed. And in the next step, and this is something like an announcement, we will integrate in our package Payable as a separate import channel, and we will also add further non-European e-invoice formats. I think Thies will explain this in his live demo a bit. Finally, another new feature will be in our library, the so-called schematron or the pre-check of Zugfeld invoices. Our customers' experience has shown that not every e-invoice actually meets the standards. And therefore, this pre-check function is very important for the communication with your suppliers, as it's the only way to request that suppliers send correct e-invoices. A glance at the world map shows a small selection of all the challenges we have mastered over the time in IRISXtract when reading invoices. On the top left, you see a snippet of a 2D barcode. Invoices from Switzerland, for example, or other countries have such barcodes containing invoice information, and this data can be compared with the content of the PDF invoice. And believe me, there can be deviations, and we handle these deviations in IRISXtract. On the top left, you see a snippet from an Indian invoice. In America or India, there are so-called state-based taxes. For example, tax rates that are not uniform across the country and vary from state to state. In India, for example, there are taxes for the states known as SGST and taxes for the country known as CGST. And again, Thies will explain how we figure this out in IRISXtract. Asia, in particular, has a challenge with the automatic recognition, especially with the special OCR character sets. And it's very important to recognize the different character set in order to have good recognition of the full text. Because only with a good full text, IRISXtract, the invoice reader, has a chance of finding the invoice data on the document. You see below two examples from China and Japan, and you see that these are special layouts, and sometimes stamps cross out or destroy the OCR information, and this is also a challenge. And finally, we process invoices from Brazil. And as you can see on the snippet at the bottom, in Brazil, you can have up to 7 different tax rates on one invoice. And we were told that IRISXtract is one of the only solutions which can handle this. Yeah, so finally, we have built these dedicated region and country packages to ensure the global processing of all invoices in the world. For example, we use the so-called SPAP standard package to capture invoice from Europe, but also from Singapore and Australia. And with the US package, we process invoice data from Canada, Mexico, and Brazil on top of the American invoices. For Asia, we have developed a package that takes into account the different OCR character sets in particular. And the special countries, as mentioned before, India, China, or Japan, will be processed to individual adjustments of this package. And finally, for the Gulf states, which form the GCC region, we have developed a package that not only takes into account the special tax rules, but also the fact that in Arabic script, the keywords for the key value search are located to the right of the field to be read. Although our solution package is called Accounts Payable since the beginning, it has long been operated within a procure-to-pay or e-procurement solution, thanks to the intelligent matching against order data. Furthermore, Xtract processes both advanced payment invoices and partial deliveries, and, if desired, can be expanded from a 2-way matching method to a 3-way matching method by including delivery notes for matching against invoice data. I mentioned at the beginning that the Accounts Payable solution package has been evolving within 25 years, and we are currently facing the next very big step towards integrating AI. Jan mentioned it already. And we use it, for example, for reading mixed date formats. So US format versus European format, which could look very similar, and they can only be recognized in the full context of the overall invoice. Another challenge is the recognition of the supplier on an US invoice, because in the US, we have not specific master data with including tax or IBAN numbers. And therefore, AI might help to have a better recognition of the supplier. Invoices with a poor OCR quality or stamped invoices have no chance to be read with a classical OCR method. Only AI would help there to read data on these invoices. But finally, and especially, the line items. The processing of table rows is very important, especially if they are very complex and the structure of the row is not easy to understand. For example, in the case of invoices from beverage suppliers with complex quantity specifications. Imagine you have crates and bottles within crates, or you have the inclusion of deposits in the addition to the unit price, and this will be solved, the recognition will be solved with integration of AI. As Jan mentioned, we are currently working on several pilot projects and will be holding another webinar on this topic beginning of next year. And then we will hopefully report our first experiences with initial customer projects. And now it's your turn again. Where do you see the biggest challenges in international invoice processing? Again, you can tick 4 different results and we will have a look. What will be the biggest challenge for you? So it's filling.
Take your time.
It's switching.
It's moving.
It's
Yeah, very
moving
good.
at the moment from table recognition and now
Different
matching
text.
PO and delivery data and together with different tax rules. So I think with today's webinar, we are in the right scope and we will already answer some of these challenges for international invoice processing. Again, we will send you the results after the webinar. Now it's time for live demo. Please show the possibilities of invoice processing with the actual solution package version.
Thank you, Leo. So let me switch me to my screen and I will show you something what we do with IRISXtract. So typically I will show you some e-invoices that we process inside of IRISXtract, and I will show you the result in our verify screen. Normally our verify screen is our logic to show the documents that need some approval or validation or maybe even some correction. But the nice thing about e-invoices at the beginning, our idea was always that the e-invoice was 100% perfectly processed.
Can you again share your screen, please?
This is live.
This is live. So hopefully I've done it again. I
Yes.
think you're showing it. Yeah, so what we are doing is processing e-invoice documents, and typically there's a lot of different formats. So one of the common formats is that you get a PDF and a separate XML, or maybe a PDF and an embedded XML. And luckily the format that is used very oftenly is the UBL format. And of course, this is one of the formats that we can process, but we can also process other formats. The nice thing about UBL that it's not only used in a lot of European countries, also outside of Europe, but also for the Payable interface, this is using the UBL format. So this makes our lives easy that we can simply use this format for downloading it. And the good thing is that normally if you look at the PDF, there's no information on the PDF document that people say, hey, we are sending you an e-invoice. But our system is telling that to me here on the top that tells, hey, this is e-invoice. So all the data that is being showed is coming from the e-invoice and not coming from the document itself. And that means that we are processing all the header information coming from the invoice, and the system simply explains to me where he found it. And also finding all the line items makes our life a little bit more easy, because sometimes, you know, line items is a challenge. But on e-invoice, we can simply find it from the master data, from the table structure in the e-invoice, and also the total amounts. Maybe let's have a look at another typical invoice. So another typical invoice is just an XML file. And I'm pretty sure that you know what an XML file looks like, but if you really look at that one, this is the typical XML file that is connected to this invoice. And this is something you don't want to have a look at because it's so complex and find the correct information is not really easy. So what we typically do is based on this XML file, we'll generate this e-invoice document just to show you all the information in a standard structure that makes your life a little bit more easy to look at it. And then you can simply read it, and you always can add additional information if that is required on this document. And what we also do is that if you see that there's a value that is not 100% correctly found, you can have a look at the information that is additional on this document. So there's a lot of additional information that we did not use yet on this e-invoice. And the system is showing that with the list. So these are the values that are still in this XML file, and you can maybe use that one. So if you can select a specific value, let's select this one, and then you can say, hey, copy this value back to my system, back to my invoice. And here you can say, simply copy it, or even train the value, meaning the next time you get an invoice from this supplier, the system will know where to find these documents, where to find these values. That makes your life a little bit easy if you have additional values that are not perfectly in the right field. And this is, you would not expect it, but this still happens. Maybe let's have a look at one more document. Typically, all the values are a lot very correct, but not always. You can still see that there's a lot of invoices that are not 100% perfect. This one is not 100% perfect because it's telling me, hey, the order number is not matching your table of master data with order information. And this is very common that, the order way of describing the order is completely different than the way we have our standard order number. Well, to be honest, in this case, it's a little bit simple, and I can simply add that to the correct value, which is just the ID and then the order number, and then the system is telling me, yeah, that's happy. So normally we could have found that automatically, but it's just based on a demo that there are still values that are not 100% perfect. And not just simply order numbers, but in real life, we have also seen that the amounts are not always 100% perfect. So yes, the standard business logic of the invoice is still doing its job and checking all the values found on the e-invoice if this is still correct. And if not, it will send it to verify, and please have an operator check it and validate it, what should be the correct item. So maybe let's have a look at some other topics that Leo has discussed. For instance, a US invoice, an American invoice. And the tricky thing about US invoices is two items. One of the items is that the tax logic is completely different, but also the other thing is that finding the correct vendor is a bit challenging than in Europe. You know, in Europe, you always have a VAT number or an IBAN number, which makes it very easy to find the correct supplier. But outside of Europe, this information is not always there. And then we need to use the items that we have in the master data of all the suppliers, like the address information, maybe bank information, or an email address, or other information, whatever we have in our database and whatever we have in whatever we can find on the document. And we also do the same logic that, for instance, for an Indian invoice. And I think Leo already explained it. On an Indian invoice, we have this special tax rate logic. And this tax rate is related to line items, and you have typically multiple values related to a line item. Here you can see it here, the tax rate says there's 9% plus 9% on one single line. So two different tax rates. And typically in Europe, you only have one tax rate on a line item. And here the system says, let me show you if it finds it. it finds here the VAT rates on the documents. In this case, both the VAT rates are 9%, but it's related to a different value. So here it says GST, so the company, no, not the company, the country code, or the SGSD, that's the state code. And there are even some other typical tax values in Indian. So it is not just these two, there are 4 different values, but yeah, let's keep that outside for now. So this is the additional logic we added to be able to process an Indian invoice. I will show you one more. Let's have a look at, for instance, Swiss invoice. And what Leo explained, that the Swiss invoice has a special QR code. And this QR code is already explaining what is the content related to this invoice. So this QR code is here on this page here. And yeah, it clearly shows you right here, there is a lot of information. So here you can see there's a little bit of a text value, that there's a lot of information from this QR code related to the supplier, related to the values or the order number or other information. And also that makes the life a bit easy to validate the logic based on the QR code. And by the way, this is the Swiss QR code, but other countries like Greek or Mexico or even Brazil have a different QR code logic. If they have a QR code, this one is related to a government portal where you can completely download the invoice information. So it's not combined in the document, but based on the web service. You can simply download the information and you don't need to read it on the PDF file. You can simply download it. So also that makes life a little bit more easy in the future, because also all these countries have different logic of how to do e-invoice business. Okay, so but that's my quick demo. Let's go back to Leo and Frank.
Yes, thank you very much, Thies, for these impressive presentations. As always, we like it. Before we move on to Jan Ratteit's presentation, I would like to introduce our joint project example with Capgemini. As you know, Capgemini implements as a service provider comprehensive e-procurement solutions for many different customers, and therefore it outsources the manual data entry of invoices and the reconciliation with order data to a service provider, and in this case to Z+M. Before Capgemini came to Z+M, the customers used different in-house solutions, and they were used in various areas at the customer side. With the current solution at Z+M, all paper, email-based or e-invoice-based invoices are sent to Z+M, and they will be treated with the different region packages for Europe, US, Asia, and the GCC states. And they are processed in one system with a clear service level agreement. This has the big advantage that Capgemini can switch customers to the new integrated procurement solution much more quickly and easily, thanks to the standardization of the interfaces and the check rules. But now I would like to hand over to Jan, who will explain how Z+M ensures the transparency in the daily processing within the DPO portal.
Thanks, Leo. Dear viewers, I would like to hijack a few minutes of this webinar to talk about the quality of service, namely new reporting capabilities we have added to our services thanks to IRISXtract database feature that collects very detailed statistical data in our processing infrastructure. As we are adding new services to our portfolio, such as procure-to-pay type processing capability, e-invoice handling, and so on, the traditional reporting we have been providing to our customers is changing as well. Mainly since there is a shift towards on-demand monitoring and integration with customers' own SLA monitoring systems that also require statistical data. We have decided to build a service management tool that can be used by our customers to monitor the SLA of the service we are providing without the need to contact a service delivery manager for a Excel report, basically virtually any time of the day. The tool is using very detailed data that the IRIS ITTC database is collecting. You can see the basic list of features on the screen now, but my favorite I wanted to point out have to be the monthly graphical overviews. For the customer's manager, we feel this is exactly what they would like to see. We are monitoring both inbound and outbound of documents, and we are monitoring also if we are meeting the SLA. These data can be used for a quick comparison month to month or year over year, and can even be exported to be used in their performance review presentations. Another ITTC-powered feature we are using internally is the most efficient operators quick overview and the most time spent per vendor, both of which I will show you in a minute. From the technical perspective, the portal is built on the basis of the process digitization platform Z+M is offering to our customers as a service, as a software as a service, as part of the fringe case capability demonstration. The entire system is hosted in our private cloud, and its security has been validated by the SOC 2 Type 2 audit report. Due to its requirements, we are not storing any deliverables in the DPO portal, only the database entries. Finally, it is time to show you the portal itself. I am using actual data from one of our customers that have been anonymized by our IT guys or by the DPO portal's inbuilt capability. I will now walk you through the features we are offering after logging in. First, there is that aforementioned graphical overview of the current month. I can select a month or a year to go to history. See that we always display an SLA threshold that we have agreed with the customer in the contract. The display can be also exported to PNG and the raw graph data in Excel. Next up is the workers overview. This displays the work each of the involved operator has been putting in for each month in a quick and easy way. This is used for a quick management look on the workload balance between the operators without needing to log into our detailed shifts management system. Next, there is an overview of the most difficult to process vendors for that particular customer. This helps pointing out a need to optimize the processing, launch a debate with this particular vendor to optimize the invoice issuing, or just simply warrant the processing cost to the customers. Now we are getting to the good bit. In the historical section, we can really make the most out of the data we store in the portal. We can use search to find the detailed information about the processed invoice document, as well as use filtering for the data. The export to Excel is also an option with the columns of the user's choosing. The direct data upload to the end customer's SLA management tool is also an option with the support of our IT. In the today's processing section, the user can go over the current queue of documents in the system to basically do the same searches as we did in the history in the exported tab. The main idea behind this is to get a clear picture of the invoice document the user is searching for, if it has been delivered, and we are also calculating the estimated delivery time. which is based on the agreed SLA metrics. Here, we can see that we have delivered some of the documents ahead of schedule. Last but not least, a documentation storage. The user can download latest versions of contracts and service descriptions and compliance details, as well as go over the approved change requests. This would be all for the DPO customer portal. I hope that I have showcased the capabilities the IRIS ITTC database can provide in managing the service in a much more responsive way. If you would like to know more about this tool, feel free to ask questions in the later Q&A session or contact me via email. Yeah.
Super. Thank you very much, Jan. I think transparency and data management is key for a BPO, and only a BPO can present the necessity of KPIs as strong as you did, Jan. Thank you very much. This brings us to the Q&A session of today's webinar. Do we have any questions in the chat or in the Q&A? To be honest, as well as you, I can't see anything in the Q&A session. Maybe I'm using the tool wrong, but I don't think so. Maybe you have some questions left. Feel free to state them. We are all here at your disposal to answer them. If not, then I think we should move to the conclusion and the brief summary of today's webinar. When it comes to invoicing, the world can be divided into regional packages, as you have seen. IRIS has analyzed country-specific invoicing characteristics and developed specific solution packages. We put our long-term experience and extensive project results at your disposal. Secondly, IRIS is hybrid. When it comes to the mixed processing of e-invoices and traditional image-based invoices, when it comes to the integration of AI, and when it comes to the advanced checking and presentation of data records. And last but not least, IRIS tests and learns in close cooperation with global service providers such as Z+M. Intensive KPIs and strong SLAs have to be the base for BPO to establish successful customer relationships. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank Jan from Z+M again for his support of today's webinar. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of today's webinar. We will get back to you with a download link. There was one question left in the Q&A. Let me just jump into it. We are about to start a project for a customer who needs us to process the Indian invoices. How many other IRIS users have you helped already with processing Indian invoices? Any answers for that, Leo?
Yeah, I can tell you that we recently added this for an international customer. And from my point of view, we have now 2 to 3 productive solutions with these invoices from India.
All right. So, as I said, everything will be provided to you, the recording, the presentation, the answerings of questions. And we hope you have enjoyed the session of today and come back to us with interesting invoice projects like Alison did. Thank you for your interest. See you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.